I'm Tommie Lee, and this is the Scam of the Week with the new president and CEO of Your Better Business Bureau serving Northern Indiana, Jan Diaz. Jan, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Tommie?
Very well, thank you. It's the beginning of the year, which means just around the corner, it's tax time. And the thing is, every year things change so much, it gets confusing, and that makes it easy to get scammed. So Jan's going to give us some of the essential tips that we need to keep in mind for the upcoming tax season, yes?
Yes, that's very true. And so, Tommie, it's great to be here. And tax scams are one of the most persistent cons that we've seen year after year. And as soon as the tax season begins, the scammers begin to ramp up their efforts, and they often pose as IRS to trick people into either paying money or giving away personal information. And so this is a topic, these tax scams is a topic that affects everyone. And I'm definitely glad to help raise awareness on it today.
So Jan, what are some of the common tax scams that we need to watch out for?
Yeah, great question, Tommie. So there are a few scams that show up every tax season. The main theme is that the scammers are posing as the IRS. They're trying to trick people into either paying money or sharing personal identifying information. So these scams most often start with a phone call and kind of take two basic forms. This is what we're seeing out there. The first version is the scammer is posing as an IRS agent, and they say they're telling people that they owe back taxes, and they are trying to pressure them into paying by a prepaid debit card or a wire transfer. So then what happens is if you have someone on the phone that's threatening you and you don't comply, the scammer will threaten you with an arrest or fines. So that's one version. The other version is the scammers are claiming they're using tax-issued refunds, and they'll ask you for personal information so that they can send you your refund. Now, everyone wants a refund, but what happens is if you give your information, this information can be used to steal your identity, basically. The scammers are also using this approach to target college students by claiming the student owes a federal student tax that hasn't been paid. And so we definitely want to get the word out there to the listeners to know that these imposters often go to great lengths to appear credible. They may give you a fake badge number, they may give you their name, but it's all fake. Your caller ID may even look like the call is coming from someone in Washington, D.C., but the whole thing is the scammers will sometimes also follow up the scam with an email. And they'll use the IRS logo, they'll use colors, they'll use official sounding language, all in an attempt to appear credible. And so in many instances, these scams start with a serious and official sounding robocall recording, or it's someone in person who's trying to reach you, but they're a scammer. Some of the other things that we're seeing out there is that the scammers will pressure folks to act quickly and try to push them into action before they even have time to think. So here's some things to know. The real IRS will never give you a chance to ask questions or appeal what you owe. The real IRS will start contact by mail, not by phone or email. So that's a really important one. And then with the scammers, the payment must be made by wire transfer, a prepaid debit card, or some other non-traditional payment method. And so because these methods are largely untraceable and non-reversible. And then the real IRS will never demand immediate payment or require a specific form of payment or ask for a credit card or debit card number over the phone. The only time the IRS may call you is with an outstanding debt after reaching out to you first by mail, U.S. Postal Mail.
That's very helpful information, Jan. What are some of the other scams that we need to watch out for in regards to taxes?
Yes, Tommie, there's a couple of other scams for listeners to be aware of. And the first is tax identity theft. And this scam occurs when a scammer uses your government-issued Social Security number to file a tax return in your name and collect your refund, or they may use your information to get a job. We see this happening, and consumers don't usually realize that they've been victims of tax identity theft until they get a written notice from the IRS saying that more than one tax return was filed, or that they were paid by an employer they don't know. And so that's one thing. The other thing is the final scam, and is the one that we talk about often, and these are email phishing scams,
Right.
which is especially popular, as we know, during the tax season. So these phishing email scams, the email appears to be from the IRS. It may even include a link to a bogus website. They look a lot like the official IRS website, but these emails contain the direction that you need to update your IRS e-file immediately. There's always an immediacy about it. But the emails may even mention USA.gov or IRS.gov without a dot or period. But these are all scams. They're email phishing scams. They're unsolicited. And remember, the IRS will send you a letter first, and then they'll follow that up with an email. So if you don't receive a letter and you get one of these email phishing scams, they're not from the IRS.
The tactics get more and more sneaky every year when it comes to tax scams. So what do people need to do to protect themselves from falling victim?
Yeah, so there's several ways that consumers can stay ahead of these scammers. The first thing is, and really the best way to avoid tax identity theft, is to file your taxes as early as possible. And we encourage everyone to do this and to file before a scammer has even the chance to use your information to file a fake return. Another thing is, if you receive tax information delivered electronically from your employer or other entity, treat that information carefully, download it onto a password-protected desktop, computer, or laptop. Make sure that it's secure, and then jot down your identity protection PIN. It's called an IP PIN from the IRS before you file your return. So this IP PIN is a 6-digit number, which is an addition to your Social Security number, and it confirms your identity. And it's important to note that once you opt in, this is optional, but once you opt in to get an IP PIN, and after you apply, you must provide the IP PIN each year when you file your federal tax return. So you'll also want to keep that in a secure place. And then the IRS, when they provide your IP PIN online, they'll send you a new IP PIN each December by postal mail. You can visit irs.gov for more information about the IP PIN program. Some other things, Tommie, is the IRS does not initiate contact with taxpayers by email, text messages, or social media to request personal or financial information. So this includes requests for PIN numbers or passwords. The IRS does not do that. And then only deal with trustworthy tax preparation services. So for a lot of people, life changes, and owning a business or trying to keep up with complicated tax laws are all good reasons to find a trustworthy tax preparer. And that said, not all tax preparers have the same level of experience and training. And so always research any tax preparer before doing business with them. And you can start your search on bbb.org. And then lastly, just check out websites carefully. There's a lot of fake websites out there, but make sure you're accessing the official IRS website when filing your taxes electronically or even inquiring for additional information.
Fantastic advice as always, Jan. But what should somebody do if they think that they have encountered a tax scam?
So if someone believes they've been targeted or encountered a tax scam, here's what they can do. They can file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, and that website is reportfraud.ftc.gov, especially if they've been a victim of tax identity theft. If you're a victim of tax identity theft, contact the IRS. And you can also file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, at reportfraud.ftc.gov. You can also report the scam to our BBB scam tracker at bbb.org/scam tracker, because reporting that will help protect others from the same type of scam.
We got to have each other's backs.
Yes.
Jan, thank you so much, as always, for sharing these valuable tips today.
Absolutely, Tommie. It's been my pleasure. And the BBB has plenty of resources to help listeners stay safe from scams, also at bbb.org.
Jan Diaz, the president and CEO of Your Better Business Bureau for Northern Indiana. The Scam of the Week, back again with you next week. Jan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tommie.
Podcasts by Federated Media.